You're 19. You live in Peenemünde, a fishing village on the Baltic coast that smells like salt and engine grease. You've never caught a fish in your life. You're here because you can solve differential equations faster than your professors. A man from the Wehrmacht Ordnance Office visited your university in Dresden, watched you present a paper on liquid propulsion. After the lecture, he didn't clap. He handed you a train ticket and said, "Pack a bag." That was 6 months ago. Now you work in a building with no windows. The project is classified. You signed papers that said, if you talk about what happens here, you'll be shot. You believed them. They weren't exaggerating. The facility is run by a man named Werner von Braun. He's 30, tall, talks like a poet when he describes rockets and like an accountant when he describes budgets. Everyone worships him. He walks through the lab and engineers stand straighter. He remembers your name after meeting you once, asks about your fuel mixture calculations 2 weeks later from memory. You realize this man doesn't forget anything. That's either inspiring or terrifying. You haven't decided yet. The rocket is called the A4. Later, the propaganda ministry will rename it Vergeltungswaffe 2, the V2. But right now, it's just math and metal and failure. Test after test after test. Rockets explode on the pad. Rockets fly sideways. One clears the tree line, then disintegrates. Von Braun watches every launch with the same expression, calm, focused, like a man reading a clock. After a failure, he doesn't shout. He says, "Good, now we know." You learn more from explosions than from successes. That's the first real lesson. October 3rd, 1942. The A4 launches. It climbs, keeps climbing, punches through the sound barrier, hits the edge of space. Everyone screams. Grown men hug each other. Someone is crying. You just stand there, staring at the sky where it disappeared. You helped build the guidance system, a tiny piece of it, but you watched it leave the earth. Nothing in your life will feel like this again. You don't know that yet, but it's true. Then reality arrives. The rocket works, which means the Reich wants 10,000 of them. Mass production, impossible deadlines, and the labor to build them has to come from somewhere. You hear rumors first. Workers from a camp. Then you see them. Thousands of men in striped uniforms, thin, hollow. They arrive at a place called Mittelwerk, an underground factory carved into a mountain in Thuringia. You go there once. Once is enough. The tunnels are cold and wet. The air is dust and chemical fumes. Men are assembling rocket components with shaking hands. They sleep in the tunnels. They die in the tunnels. You see a man carrying a metal casing. His arms give out. A guard hits him with a rifle butt. He gets up, keeps carrying. You look at the floor and keep walking. You tell yourself you're an engineer. This isn't your department. You work on propulsion, on trajectory, on math. You go back to Peenemünde. You don't talk about what you saw. Nobody does. There's a phrase for it. You learn it without anyone teaching you. Don't look. Don't ask. Don't know. It becomes a skill, the most important skill you'll ever develop. You'll use it for the rest of your life. The war turns. You can feel it. Allied bombers hit Peenemünde in August 43. You're asleep when the first bombs fall. You run outside in your undershirt. The sky is orange. Buildings are burning. People are screaming. A colleague you ate lunch with that afternoon is dead under rubble 40 meters from your dormitory. After that, they move everything underground. You work in tunnels now too, just like the prisoners. Except you go home at night. Except you eat. Except you live. By early 1945, you know it's over. Everyone knows. The question isn't whether Germany loses. The question is who gets you first. The Soviets are coming from the east, the Americans from the west, the British from the north. Von Braun gathers the senior team. He doesn't waste time. The Soviets will put us in a lab and never let us leave. The Americans will let us work. We go west. That's not a discussion. That's an order. You pack documents into crates, thousands of pages of calculations, schematics, test data. You hide them in an abandoned mine in the Harz Mountains. This paper is more valuable than gold. Both sides know it. Whoever gets the documents gets the future. April 1945. You're moving through a collapsing country. Roads are clogged with refugees, bridges blown. Every town has a white flag or a firefight. You're in a convoy heading toward Bavaria, American lines. You carry a pistol you've never fired and a briefcase full of technical drawings. SS units are hunting scientists who try to defect. The order from Berlin is clear. No German rocket expertise falls into enemy hands, alive or dead. You pass through a checkpoint. An SS officer looks at your papers for a long time. Too long. Then he waves you through. You don't exhale for another kilometer. May 2nd, 1945. You surrender to the U.S. Army. A private from Iowa points a rifle at you. You put your hands up. You say the sentence you rehearsed in broken English. I am a rocket scientist. I want to speak to your commanding officer. The private looks at you like you're insane, calls his sergeant, the sergeant calls his captain. Within 48 hours, you're in a holding facility with von Braun and over 100 other engineers. You're given coffee, real coffee. You haven't had real coffee in 2 years. An American intelligence officer sits across from you with a file. He knows your name. He knows your work. He knows about Mittelwerk. He doesn't mention the prisoners. He asks about thrust coefficients. This is the deal. They never say it out loud, but you understand it perfectly. We know what happened. We don't care. Not because it doesn't matter, because what you know matters more. The Cold War hasn't started yet, but the men in this room can already feel it. The Soviets are grabbing every German scientist they can find. It's a race, and you're the prize. The program is called Operation Paperclip. The name comes from the paperclips attached to the files of scientists deemed useful enough to bring to America. Your file has a paperclip. It also has a note about your Nazi party membership. Someone crosses it out, writes, "Not a security risk" in the margin. You weren't a true believer. You were a man who wanted to build rockets and joined the party because not joining meant not working. That's what you tell yourself. That's what you'll tell everyone for the next 50 years. It's mostly true, mostly. September 1945, Fort Bliss, Texas. You step off a military transport into heat that hits you like a wall. The air is dry, the sky is enormous. Everything is flat and brown and impossibly bright. You've never seen a landscape this empty. A sergeant drives you to a cluster of buildings on the base. Your quarters are a shared room with 2 other engineers. Concrete floor, metal cots. It's better than the tunnels. It's better than the rubble. You don't complain. The work starts immediately. The Army shipped over captured V-2 rockets. Your job is to reassemble them and launch them in the New Mexico desert, White Sands proving ground. You're building the same rocket on a different continent for a different flag. The math doesn't change. The math never changes, but everything else does. You're in America, technically. You can't leave the base without an escort. You can't talk to reporters. You don't have a visa. You're not a prisoner, but you're not free. You exist in a category that doesn't have a name. Enemy scientist, war asset, future American. The paperwork takes years. You learn English from Armed Forces radio and a dictionary you keep in your coat pocket. You learn that Americans eat enormous meals and drink weak coffee and are loud in a way that isn't aggressive, just unaware. You learn that the soldiers guarding you are mostly kids, farm boys from the Midwest who've never left their state. They look at you with suspicion and curiosity in equal measure. One of them asks if you ever met Hitler. You say no. He seems disappointed. By 1950, you're at Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. Von Braun is building a team. You're on it. The mission is American ballistic missiles. The Soviets tested their first nuclear bomb in '49. The arms race is real. Everyone is terrified. That terror is your job security. You become a citizen in 1955. You raise your right hand in a courthouse in Alabama. You pledge allegiance. The judge shakes your hand. Outside, you stand on the steps and feel nothing in particular. You're American now, a man with a German accent and stars and stripes paperwork and a past sealed in a classified file. Your neighbors don't know where you came from. They know you work at the arsenal. They know you're some kind of engineer. They invite you to barbecues. You bring potato salad. You laugh at jokes you half understand. You learn to talk about baseball without understanding baseball. October 4th, 1957. The Soviets put a satellite in orbit. America panics. Congress panics. The president panics. Suddenly, rocket scientists aren't suspicious Germans. They're national heroes. Von Braun is on the cover of magazines. The phone doesn't stop ringing. Build us something. Build it fast. Beat the Soviets. You work 18-hour days. You don't mind. This is what you were born for. January 31st, 1958. Explorer 1, America's first satellite. Your propulsion calculations are in every stage of that rocket. When it reaches orbit, the control room erupts. Champagne, handshakes, photographs. You're in the background of a photo that will appear in newspapers across the country. Nobody knows your name. That's fine. You know what you did. Then Kennedy says the words, "Before this decade is out, landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth." You're sitting in your living room watching the television. Your wife, an American woman you married in 1953, asks if it's possible. You say yes. You're not sure, but you know you'll spend the rest of your working life trying. July 20th, 1969. You're in a control room in Houston. You're 46 years old. When Armstrong steps onto the surface, the room goes silent for 1 second. Then it explodes. Men are crying, hugging. Someone drops a coffee cup and nobody cares. You sit in your chair. You think about the first A4 clearing the tree line, the same physics, the same math, a straight line from a beach on the Baltic to the surface of the moon. And then you think about the tunnels, the men in stripes, the one who dropped the casing, the guard with the rifle. You think about them standing in the dark building, the parts that became the knowledge that became this moment. Their names aren't in any file. Their faces aren't in any photograph. Nobody in this room knows they existed, but without them, this room doesn't exist. The moon landing is built on their bones. You know that. You've always known that. You just got very, very good at not looking. You die at 71. Funeral in Huntsville. Small, quiet. The obituary says aerospace engineer and contributed to the American space program. It doesn't mention Peenemünde. It doesn't mention Mittelwerk. It doesn't mention the tunnels or the men or the paperclip on your file. It says beloved husband. It says father of 3. It says he will be missed. That's the version. That's the one that makes it into print. The rest stays where you left it. In the dark, underground, where nobody has to look at it. That's a wrap for today. The story you just heard is fiction, but Operation Paperclip was real. Over 1,600 German scientists were brought to America. Some helped land men on the moon, some helped build nuclear missiles, and the men who died in the tunnels building V-2 rockets never got an obituary at all. If this one made you think, drop a comment, subscribe for more.